every single day there's something new coming out. And I think if that's not exciting for you, I don't know.
This is Diogo, a designer turned health tech founder building fast to give patients back what matters most, time. I'm Mika, and this is It's a Vibe.
You started your career in branding and design, right? Health tech is like an extremely complex market. I've seen it firsthand. I worked with it also firsthand. I need to ask, how does a designer end up co-founding a company like Biorce? What was the moment that made you think like, hey, this is a problem I want to solve?
Well, I think we have to come back literally to my background. So my background was all centered like in branding. And so I always were like a sucker for branding, aesthetic, typography. Basically, I was looking always like to getting out of the best thing from everything. So I think the detail, the aesthetic, it was always there. Except one thing, I was designing, I was building cool things, but a bit without a purpose. Like I was seeing my things outside, amazing, but in the end, what's the purpose? So I completely switched a bit my career from the print side, the branding, from working from luxury and a bit of tech as well, to a more like user-centered type of work. And basically that brought me here to this amazing mission, to a big challenge, to work in an industry that I didn't know nothing about it until a friend of mine, now my CEO and the founder of the company that I work, literally messaged me about an idea. And I literally called him after it. And after the explanation that he gave me, it was on that moment that I thought, okay, I see the mission on this, I see the purpose on this. So I literally jump on the same day and start to prepare everything for that thing. So telling a bit about the story about how I end up in a biotech and this sector, we have to start with the why. And so I think this why is a bit more personal, especially because this friend of mine, he got this problem in her life and he ended up asking why. And so basically is just to keep it shortly, his father was diagnosed with melanoma back in time, and if this thing wasn't worse enough, he actually had like around like 3 months of living. And so my friend that already have a huge background in life sciences suddenly start looking into like what will be the best clinical trial for him, for his father. And he found out that it was quite difficult to find out. And so basically he was just questioning himself, like, if for me it's such a difficult task to find out like the best one, what if like I can just not imagine like I would be to, let's just say it, a common person that is not from this background. And so from that moment he understood that it was literally like a big gap in the system to create something easy or allow any person to find out what will be the best treatment for themselves. And so that was the main idea. Of course, this was just a small branch of a big product that eventually we are developing. So that was the moment that when he invited me and he said to me about this idea, it was just like a small part of that. We end up, I end up having this momentum of like, okay, this is actually super meaningful for me to create something that literally gonna have a huge impact on not just me, but my friends, my family, everyone in the world. So to make it short and as a reason, like the mission, all of the mission about that product, that company, is basically just reduce the clinical trials, the time of clinical trials, and also reduce the drug development. And so that's a big thing. Of course, back in the day, it was super complex for me. I cannot explain how difficult it was for me to understand. Of course, he have to give me like a lot of like sessions to understand like about this topic, about like clinical trials, what are those, what is actually the problem. And so he actually explained to me that imagine like a clinical trial, usually to be completed, it's been around like 11 to 14 years to be done. And most of that time is because of something. Because of more than 50% comes from actually mistakes, and those mistakes are from human error. And so this is a big picture. And so if we can actually produce something that can reduce the amount of these mistakes, we are already contributing to something that in the end is going to tackle that huge time to at least half of it. And so that's the main reason that I joined Biorce, to make something that actually have an impact on every single one of us.
First of all, thanks for sharing. I think that's an amazing story. There's nothing, I always say, like there's nothing like a product and a company that's rooted in an actual purpose, especially something that's helping basically everyone. And you mentioned something like super interesting, which is like the why, right? And talking about the why, what do you think drew you initially to the design world? I want to
Yeah,
break down Biorce into a lot of things, but first I want to go to the root, right? Like
yeah.
what drew you
How I
to
end up
design
have
world
like
originally?
yeah. I think we have to start from the beginning. When I was a kid, I was always like trying drawing houses, drawing buildings. So my idea was to become an architect. So that was the main focus. Um, and I think actually it's a cool story because my grandpa, he was a constructor, and so when he was asking me like, "Hey, Diogo, what you want to do like when you grow up?" And I was like, "I want to do something that eventually you will do it." And so that came from the idea of becoming an architect. Of course, like with the years, then I went to my high school, and eventually I was fascinated by cars, and so all I was drawing was like cars, every single piece of a car. And then eventually I discovered graphic design and typography, and I was like, okay, this is actually pretty cool. And so I think it comes from that, from actually the typography in graphic design. So the attention on the detail, and for me to find something that it seems like you cannot do more because every single typography already exists. Like, what's the point of creating a new one? I think there's no point of that. And so I saw that like an opportunity to like give more character and um, more character and more like things more unique to something that looks so basic as a letter. And so everything starts from there, to adding detail on things and to give things a more aesthetic an aesthetic way. And so I can literally my all of my graphic design career literally starts on detail, on finding things to become even better and more aesthetically pleasing.
I think that attention to detail is so important. What part of that mindset do you think that stayed with you as you lead design at Biorce?
Hmm. I think it was it is still a huge thing, the question on detail, because usually it's not like so common to someone, at least from this background, on working on branding and specifically on typography for so many time, to end up like working with UI, UX, digital things. But I think that the mission is still there. Like I'm still always looking for detail. I'm still always looking for make something even better. And so when we think about making a product that will be eventually used by someone, that by using that product, it will eventually have an impact on a patient. I think when you think about it, the detail actually have to be quite a lot. So the product can stay beside be efficient, but also like super engaging and intuitive. And the best way for you to make it happen is literally take time with things, keep attention on details, so the product is the intuitive and engaging as possible. So the impact is bigger on the patient.
Going a little bit into actually your product,
Mhm.
again, you said you're tackling a huge challenge, which is shortening the clinical trial timelines
Yeah.
with the help of AI, of course. Um, for people that don't know the space so much, what do you think? Why do you think makes this problem so hard and so urgent? I know that you talked about like I think you said 13 to 14 years, which is like so much, but can you walk us through a little bit into like the complexity of the space?
I think the huge problem in the industry is actually the time that is spent, and to keep in mind, like the more time we spend working on a clinical trial, there's someone on the other side that is waiting for something, like literally for yesterday. And so our mission is definitely reducing the timeline on the industry, because by reducing that, you will eventually can produce much more drugs. So eventually they can actually be more cheaper. So it's like a circle. So if you tackle these, this thing will be tackled as well. And so, um, but the way that we actually tackling this thing is like when you're building a clinical trial, there's something called amendments, and to go from like a phase to another phase, there's actually you have like almost milestones. So if you have some mistakes in the middle, you have to call an amendment. So, and if that amendment is not done correctly, everything goes back again. And so this time that is spending, and also the millions and millions that are spending in the industry, are making someone wait for something that can actually be avoided, that is called a human error. And so we actually found um, a huge gap in the market for these things, because if we can in a way reduce the mistake from human, we actually are like making something faster and cheaper. So that's the mission, to make things faster and cheaper for everyone. I think that's the goal, and that's the real impact of our company. And that's why I think it's a big mission, of course, but I think we are in a right way.
It's kind of like you're reducing time to give it back to your patients, right? So like I agree, like that mission is outstanding.
Yeah, it's
Amazing.
it's almost like you are like giving more hope with this, like because people cannot. There's moments in life that people cannot wait. I think time in a certain stage of our lives, the time has a different meaning, and so the time is more reduced. And so if we think about it, it's actually a big problem, because when we are in a rush for something, when we really need something, that's the moment when we want things fast. And if we can avoid those things, if you can avoid this all time spent, it will much be like it's gonna be so worth it for the whole society.
The mission is so important because it's like it's humans helping humans, like, and when there's such a rush for those things, like the mission itself becomes like more and more important, right? And like you said something about being patient with like the people and everything. I think that also like for solving these kinds of complex problems, you also need a team that is grounded also in like the mission and the why. How would you say, like, as a head of product, like a lead for design, how do you work with this like huge why, ac- like across product design, engineer, across all teams?
I would say, if I can tell you, it's easier than it seems, to be honest, because when you have such an important mission, such an important impact that's going to be done eventually with your product, everyone is already motivated. So when they are coming to the company, they already know, and because they understand the value of the product they are building. So eventually, they get almost auto motivated to build something as fast as possible that can be delivered to the patient as fast as possible. And so everyone understands that. So in a way, it's easy. Of course, it's still a product, so it it still has its bottlenecks and so on. But I would say it's quite easy when you actually can pass the message, and I think that's the key. Since the beginning, on the core of the company, we have this motivation that drives us, and I think we actually communicate quite well to everyone in the company that is entering, and so they feel almost obligated to deliver the product faster as possible and the better as possible, because in the end, we are fully centered on the patient. And so when you have that mission, when you know so well who you are delivered for, you already have a purpose. So you are much more motivated. You will work much better, and there's less friction when you're building something like that. Of course, then comes the other side. That is because it's like such a complex topic, healthcare and AI together. They side by side, separately, they're already like super complex. But when you combine them, oh wow, gets complex. And so, and the majority of the, I would say, the design, the product team, they are not coming from the sector, which in a way it's good, but it's completely different for them. And so you need time to explain everything and to absorb and to understand, because they need to understand actually what is going on with the product and what actually going to be the problem that's going to be solved. And so I think that's the complex thing, to understand that, to then create something that until now doesn't exist. I think that's the real thing. And I would say that's the real thing. So it's a combination like this why, and gets to an easy way, because it's such a, because you know the story about how it comes out and how we actually going to be done. And so that part is easy, but then the other side, of course, is more complex.
It's so important to have like a strong team behind everything that you do. That's number one. And I wonder, like, I know that you guys have been scaling a lot in the past 2 years. What would you say is the most difficult part of scaling while still maintaining that, like, not only product culture, but also like the culture of the company?
I think that's actually like one of the big things. And I think most of the companies can actually um, do some mistakes when they pass through that phase, because in the beginning everything is, let's say, easy, because you are just like a small group of people motivated and with the skills to bring something to the market. But when you're like growing up, it's difficult to maintain the values, and I think that's the real thing. Like, I think the real problem that usually companies fall to is they are completely ignoring the values of the core. And I think that was one of the things that keep us. So that was specifically one of the biggest things, on the biggest challenges for us. But I think since the beginning, we tend to have this kind of every single person that joins us in our company, it's almost like adopting someone to our family. And so you never put someone that cannot behave with your family in your house. So it's almost the same thing. So for us, the core values are like mandatory. So beside the skills, we actually appreciate a lot the soft skills, because I do think like skills can be taught and learned, no matter the time that you spend on it. But soft skills, those cannot be learned so easily. And so we end up having sometimes spending a bit more time than usually a normal team of HR will spend interviewing people. But we want to make sure that that person is special. So besides being talented and have it being suitable for the role, that person can actually be at the type of energy that we need in the company. And I think these all mix of different personalities are like the spark that keep us completely alive since the beginning. So we started just as four, the founder and three co-founders, and we are now 40. So it was a big change until now, and it's so enjoyable to look at every single one of us and having the same type of values, the values of a startup, of course, like everyone is super agile, super proactive, super talented, but also like we are super humble, and then super smart, and then super energized. We treat every single one of us like almost as a family, and it's so enjoyable to watch that. And I think one of the key things just to add on that, on the values, is in the beginning was just us trying to, let's just say, um, mold this kind of culture. But eventually, as long as you are growing the company, it's not just my mission, or actually the mission of the ones that started in the beginning, but from everyone. So it's like a everyone still keeps to do this kind of mission to keep the values of the company alive, because no matter what, if we're expanding to other countries like we are now doing in United States, um, every single one of us is an ambassador of the company, no matter where they are. And so if someone comes to our office or our office in US, they still need to understand and still feel the energy. Okay, these guys, they actually belong to the same company. And I think that's such a, it's super difficult to have it, but I'm so proud to have it on our company. It's such a enjoyable thing to have. And in the end, like, we are spending more time with our employees and with our teammates, more than actually our family, our friends. So in the end, we are working together. So if we can actually make the, um, the working environment the best as possible for both of us, the work's going to be done even better than someone that is like completely depressed working, doesn't have any values, and so on. So I think people sometimes underestimate this topic, but I think that is actually one of the key things when you're like growing the company or scaling it.
I definitely know and understand and agree that, of course, like skills are important, but hard skills can be taught. Soft skills are so differential for building the culture of the company. Of course, like you're an AI driven company, but you're probably encouraging, as most managers today, to for your team to adopt AI tools, right? But of course, it's important to, again, never let go of the craft, attention to detail, like you were saying, for solving the actual problems for the real users that you guys have. What does that balance look like in practice for you?
Last year when we started the company, it was the boom of AI. And so we are like almost like creating or surfing the wave of AI. And it was so nice that, of course, we are building a product that involves AI, but then it's so fun and even nicer to actually work ourselves, the engineers, the designers, with AI as well. So it was like something that, and I say this too many times to my team, that I think sometimes we are not understanding how big of a thing we are living now, because these things are not coming every single year. These things can actually come not even in a decade. And so it's almost like the time of like internet. And so I think we have to absorb as much as possible, because in the end, every one of us will use it. We are using to build a product. So why not using it for our benefit? So my balance with AI, it's quite, I see AI as a tool to amplify our human tools. So basically, AI is just a something that can actually do something for you that maybe can be something repeatable, that you have to do it every single day. So everything that can actually accelerate your process. So, and once again, we are like talking about accelerate in our product. Our product is about to accelerate things. Why can we not accelerate our processes? The things that we do on our regular basis, like, why not apply them to our life, to the things that we are not, I mean, they are so, sometimes they are boring, they are repetible, and then applying that specifically to design. I think they are good for like accelerating the process, but of course that will be always be, we need the human input to polish things. So I think we are using it a lot, I would say, but in a balanced way. So then the product doesn't get completely mischaracterized. Any single one that is working on product cannot forget these, that in the end, the mission is for the product be used by a user, a human. So we are designing for humans. So the human touch on everything is still super important, and it should be the main part. But of course, as long as you can accelerate your process, just go for it.
Understanding also that everything, there are like a million new tools out there, and like not only we can talk about like how we incorporate it into your product, but also for your design team. Like there's so many products out there, there's so many buzz, there's so many noise right now. Where do you think AI still falls short for both your product and for your design teams?
I think AI is value, like has a high value, uh, but there's one thing that actually lacks, which is empathy and intuition, which is something that human have it. And so I think that's the big thing that it will eventually, and that I don't know if it's gonna be ever solved. But it kind of remember me a bit when we were like in the industrial revolution age, and everything was like done quicker and quicker and quicker. Suddenly, a group of other people starting to doing something called the art and crafts, and so they were like seeing that everything, every product back in the day was like being built the same way. Like they were fast, but they were almost losing the purpose and the mission because of so many things were like built in at the same time. And so they found out like people were still missing something, and that something was personality, the human factor on things, the craftsmanship. And I think that's one of the key things that we can end up like using a lot of AI, but there's nothing like the human touch or the human validation, let's just say it, in the end of a process that cannot replace it.
I couldn't agree more. What you said about also like intuition, and it is true now that everything is automated with AI. There's, especially in product, what I see is that everything is coming up to be the same. So all of those, like the skill set, the human eye, the intuition that your team, my team, like everyone's team can have, it's what will up level and like bring your product to the next stage, right? And on the other side, what do you think has been like the most surprising benefit of using AI in your workflow on your product, of course, that you didn't maybe expect?
Yeah, I still remember when Figma launched Make, and I immediately started to play with it, and I was like, okay, this is something that's going to be quite good for us as a team for our products. The way that you can test things, you can prototype things faster, the way you can polish things, the way you can do A/B testing. So things that can actually back in not so many time are taking a little bit more time to then create. Oh, I have an idea about something that you can actually polish after it. I think that was like the real thing. And nowadays we are using it quite a lot. Most of that for prototyping and for prototyping, A/B testing, and also using a lot of the MCPs with Claude and Figma directly. I think it's already being something. And on that side specifically, using MCPs and so on, it's such a great tool because you are not now just putting prompts to get something and then polish everything. It's like someone build like a block of, like a huge cube of cement, and then it's got the human have to sculpt it as we want. And so with the MCPs, for like I can give you like a common example, like the way we are rebuilding our design system, we are doing it actually with MCP, like giving, let's just say, almost no rules, because what the MCP does, it literally, and you know, of course, is basically put the context on something. And so you can have uh, an AI model as Claude speaking the same language as Figma, and they are communicating the same way. What is something that back in not so many again, you are like talking with someone that doesn't speak the same language. You need to be the translator between. And on this topic, with something as an MCP, they are literally talking the same language, so they know what they need for each other. And so, giving the simple things. So when we are creating design system, all the paddings that we need to put on, he already understands everything. So it's like almost verifying everything that we are doing it. So it's not taking apart our design touch. It's basically refining to the rules and to the norms as the software must be done. And so, just to give you an example of how we actually working just a simple way nowadays.
At first, and I can talk maybe from my team, uh, everyone was like super scared. There was like this huge, we all know it, like this huge fear of like AI is going to replace me. But I think that AI has come, especially for designers, to like plug them into this like out of this world skill set where for I know that you are doing it, we are doing it, like our designers directly plugging into our customers' repos and doing like front end code with Cursor and Cloud
Mm-hmm.
Code. So it's like, I think that from an adoption perspective, the at first it was like super scary for everyone, but at the end it has shown like such a growth in the team. Like everyone is so excited. If we talk specifically about maybe career path, everything is growing so quickly, and like designers now have this skill set that is unbelievable, right?
Yeah,
In a sea of AI and health startups, biotech, what do you think makes Biorce so different? How do you make sure that it feels and speaks differently to people in like the product experience as a whole?
that's a good question. Um, I think we are different because we are not only tackling one thing. So the majority of the companies in the sector, in the same ecosystem, they are just tackling just a little branch of the big problem. And since the beginning, we are seeing the problem not in a macro mode, but like in a super, like from wide, like from far. And when we are aware of this problem, we are building something that is not specifically just like targeting something um, the, that the others are doing it, but we are tackling the full branch. So in the clinical trials ecosystem, you have a lot of things. So it could go from just a simple search on a competitive landscape, from building a protocol, from searching the best sites, the matchmaking. So there's a lot of little products inside of this product. And I think since the beginning we are focused on one thing and one thing only, that is reducing the time of clinical trials. And we knew since the beginning that to do that, we can not only like tackle just a little thing on this. So that's why we are building something that is much more complex. It's like a like we always say, it's like a 15 products in one product. So it's like a one-man show, and that's what actually put us in a different kind of spectrum, because we end up having this decision and this vision to bring something to the market that actually can tackle the full problem and not just like a small part.
I really like that. And it's what you were saying, like what makes you special, right? What makes your product special? Talking about special, what do you think that makes you special in the sense of like something that AI could never replicate or replace about you?
I think there's a lot of variables to bring to the table to answer that. So I think it's just a combination of talent, time spent, um, money spent as well, because to teach a model actually takes a lot, not only time, but a lot of money as well, and have the right people in the right timing. I think the combination of that make us feel special, and I think that's why it keeps us growth and motivated. It's that uniqueness that make us like completely different from the rest. Besides the problem that we are actually tackling.
Again, it all comes back to the why that you guys have and like the mission that you guys have. It's it has been really amazing to chat with you and like to understand a little bit more about Bior's mission. I can wait to see like next features and to maybe talk in a couple of months and see where Bior's is. again, like, thank you so much for
No, it was
being
my pleasure.
here, for chatting with me.
Thank you once again for the opportunity to be here. Um, for me, it's always a pleasure to share a bit about our company because it's part of my life. And as passionate as I am about design, I'm super excited with this journey on AI and also for the big mission that we are trying to tackle. But of course, it's always good to have these kind of conversations around, especially now with AI and design. I think, like you were saying in the beginning, like everyone was scared in the beginning, and then suddenly everyone excited, and every single day there's something new coming out. And I think if that's not exciting for you, I don't know. But it's actually such a nice thing. I think that's actually such a nice thing to have. And once again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. And as we will see it on the next couple of months, the new features, of course.